As big tech races against the clock to dominate the AI frontier, Congress held the second part of its bipartisan AI Insights Forum. Everything from regulation and innovation was discussed with the biggest names in technology. Our next guest was among the 21 attendees, and joining us right now is AOL co-founder and Revolution chairman and CEO Steve Case. Steve, this is a huge issue. I think a lot of people in the world are wondering what to make of AI and how governments can and should go ahead and regulate that. There were already concerns about the idea that these conversations were taking place behind closed doors, just the idea that there's a brain trust of people who are going to be making these decisions and the public doesn't figure that out. What can you tell us to allay any of those concerns?
Well, first of all, I think it's actually healthy that the Senate is focusing on AI and doing it in a collaborative, bipartisan way. On the other side of the Capitol, obviously, the House, things have been a little challenging lately. So I thought it was helpful. And I understand the criticism about it being private. That enables it to be a candid conversation. People aren't talking to the press. They're really talking about the real issues. So I found it to be a good, constructive conversation. Different views were talked about in terms of pro-regulation, anti-regulation, what to do about workers, how to create a more inclusive innovation economy, how to make sure it's just not about big tech getting bigger. A lot of the key themes were discussed, did get airtime. And so I give hats off to the bipartisan leadership, Senator Schumer, obviously, and Senator Young and Rounds and Heinrich for leading the effort, and for the other senators who took the time to listen and learn about AI, because it is complicated.
Yeah, I will give them kudos too for trying to dig into this. There are so many things we can't get right from a regulatory perspective. Appreciate that they're trying to figure this out. What are your big concerns? And you know, look, they may not be talking about what was said in the room. I'd like to hear what you think the big concerns are after you heard what was said there.
Well, I think AI is obviously an important foundational technology. It's been developing for half a century. It's not particularly new. It's something that we all use every day, but it's gotten to be a lot more attention because of ChatGPT and sort of the AI had sort of its Netscape moment if you look back in the internet era. So it's been developing for 50 years. It's now gotten more attention. I think there's enormous benefits to AI. That was part of the discussion yesterday in terms of healthcare and other things that can be done in much more precision medicine. But there are also risks. So how do you balance it? I think one of the things I said yesterday is the light touch approach to regulation. The early days of the internet probably is too light, but the heavy touch that we're seeing in places like Europe with some of their proposed AI regulation likely would be too heavy and stifle some of the innovation. America needs to lead the AI revolution. China has invested heavily in this. So we need to lead, but we also need to do it in a more inclusive way. So it can't just be the big companies. We need to back the startups. It can't just be Silicon Valley. We need to back startups all over the country. So those are some of the themes I talked about. Embrace the benefits of AI, recognize there are risks, recognize you need sort of a Goldilocks solution to regulation, not too little, not too much, just right, but also recognize that it has to be something that levels the playing field, allows the next generation of entrepreneurs all across the country to compete.
Look, I think the two huge concerns I have with it would, number one, be, is it a jobs killer, at least in the short term? But that's a more pedestrian concern, even when you compare it to, does it destroy the world? Is this rise of the machines and they take over and something goes really wrong? So why don't we dig through those two things first? First of all, is it a jobs killer short term?
There certainly will be some aspects to it that will result in loss of jobs. That's been the march of technology. A century ago, 90% of us worked on farms. Now it's 2% because technology made it easier to grow more food for more people at lower cost, which is actually a good thing for society, but was a bad thing for the fact that most people at the time worked in farms. So we had to pivot from that agricultural revolution to the industrial revolution, move people from farm to factories. Now we're pivoting from the industrial revolution to the digital revolution, and we need to make sure people are retrained. And that was also part of the discussion yesterday, making sure we rethink our education system to make sure people are prepared for these jobs. And also, one thing that got a lot of airtime, which I was encouraged by, is recognizing this is a moment to finally deal with our immigration policy. We need to be a magnet for talent. We want the best AI researchers coming here and staying here, not going to China, not going to some other country. So the other part on the jobs killer side, it talks about what we've in the past talked about with Rise the Rest. We need to back companies everywhere because new companies, startups create most of the jobs in our country, not small business, not big business, but new business. So we need to back those companies everywhere, and that can offset, at least in part, the jobs that will be lost.
Look, those other revolutions where you moved from agricultural to industrial to tech, those took a lot longer. This one feels like it's happening faster, and maybe that's part of the fear into it. How do you gear up your education system? How do you gear up your training? What do you do about the displacement if it takes place on a much faster pace?
Well, again, yes, it's fast, but it's also been evolving for 50 years. That's AI has been around for literally half a century. And so we now are focusing more on it, which I think is important. We're starting to see how it's being integrated to reimagine healthcare and education, a lot of other important aspects of our lives. And also recognize, as you've seen with other technologies, it's not just artificial intelligence, it's augmented intelligence, and jobs will change and some new jobs will emerge. That has also been true with other technologies. So I'm not, saying there aren't risks associated with AI in terms of job loss or national security issues. There are, but recognizing there are also some upsides and trying to make sure you get the policy balance, the regulations balance was one of the key themes yesterday.
Steve, finally, your concerns or where you come down just on the idea of what happens if something goes wrong, if these machines are kind of given these powers to think, and then we can't rein it in. How do we prevent that from happening? I know that's not just a U.S. problem, that's a global problem, but what do we do to try and prevent something like that?
Well, that's why I think discussions like we're having now here in the Washington, D.C. are important. This is an important new technology. It's going to have a transformative impact on society, the economy, our everyday life, even government, even elections. And so rather than just, think about it on the side, having a constructive, collaborative, bipartisan conversation is exactly what we need to do. I do worry about some of the long-term impacts of AI, but I also are seeing firsthand some of the benefits. We backed a company in Chicago called Tempus that's using AI and genomics to save lives. They now have 2,000 employees. Or, when people are diagnosed with cancer, they can go to Tempus and get a much more precise, working with their doctors, obviously, a much more precise recommendation. That's AI saving lives. AI is improving education, sort of a personal tutor. So we need to look at some of the risk and worry about some of those downsides, including losing our lead as the most innovative entrepreneurial nation in the world. So we need to lead in AI. We need to make sure we're maximizing the benefits and minimizing the risk and doing it in a balanced way. And discussions like yesterday, I think, are an important step of that.